Today I'm interviewing Alice Hart-Davis. Alice Hart-Davis is a very well-known British journalist, author, and founder of the Tweakments Guide. This is a guide for non-surgical treatments and skincare. Alice comes from a journalist family and was brought up in Henley-on-Thames. Alice is very much regarded as an expert in her field, based on her personal research and her hands-on experience of many treatments. So Alice, tell me, what do you like about your work?
I love this mad industry that we find ourselves in because there is so much going on the whole time. There's such a fast pace of development. And I mean, you know what it's like. You think you've just about got your heads around what all these treatments are, how they work, what they do. And then there's a new one along and you've got to try and assess whether it's any good, whether you should take any notice of it. Find someone who's doing it. Or do you need to learn about it? What are you going to tell people about it? Because I got people the whole time saying, have you heard of this? Have you tried that? But I love the energy and pace of development in it. So, you know, there's a lot going on.
You know, it's a great industry to be in. I know the feeling when someone asks, "Have you heard about this?" and you're like, "No, I haven't." What am I going to say? I don't want to look silly.
Usually, luckily, they ask on Instagram messages or email or something, and I can have a quick Google and think, oh yeah, I know that they've just got the wrong end of the stick and misspelt it, or otherwise I'll think, oh no, I didn't, but I ought to. ought to know about that. So no, people are really well informed these days. Or there's a curious balance between a lot of people have a really vague idea of what cosmetic procedures do. And yet there's some people who've done an awful lot of research and, you know, want to know exactly the latest thing about the latest treatment that's out there.
And you're a good person to ask. But yeah, sometimes I get asked in clinic. They put me on the spot. Now I haven't got the luxury of picking these up. Can you tell me something that you've done in the past that you're particularly proud of? And don't be modest.
Apart from setting up the Tweakments, I'm quite proud of setting up the Tweakments Guide, actually, because this area, as a journalist, I've been a journalist forever. I've been writing about beauty and aesthetics for 25 years, and it's always been one of those things that makes people recoil a bit when you talk about it. And it was certainly very unusual 15 years ago to write about these things openly and say, I tried this and this is what it was like. It was all a bit shock horror. But I thought that there came a point where I was getting so many questions about procedures, more than even about what's the best moisturizer, that I thought maybe this would have been about 7 years ago. Maybe now is the time to just try and, I wrote a book about it. There's now the website, and we have a list of practitioners on there whose work has been recommended to me or who I know do great stuff, and who I can feel I would trust with my face, and therefore I can recommend them to other people, because it's a really tricky area. So I'm quite proud of that, if that's not too obvious a thing to say.
No, not at all. You should be proud of it. And this is why it's really good to speak to you, because you've got so much knowledge in this field.
Thank you.
And when you're not working, what do you like doing?
I seem to spend a lot of weekends going to aesthetic conference and things, which I do actually enjoy, because there's so much to learn in this area. But when I'm not doing that, I love yoga. I love doing yoga, and I will go off and do a lot of that. I'm less keen on gym stuff and pushing weights, and looking out the window at all the lovely green leaves. I think it's the thing to do with getting older. I get quite soppy about the wonders of nature. You know, I'm in London, so wonders of nature involve a walk in the park rather than, you know, staring out over mountain ranges or anything. You know, it's extraordinary. So I enjoy trying to appreciate that, you know, because we spend so much time connected and, you know, on in a way that we didn't even 10 or 20 years ago. Trying to go for a walk without anything in my ears seems a strange and relaxing experience.
Yeah, I can imagine you doing all your get quick questions and so on, and back and forth, when you're walking. What music do you like listening to right now?
I love music. I have 3 grown-up children. I'm always begging them for recommendations of new stuff, news that I'm not just listening to greatest hits of the 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever. Couple of bands. There's one called the Lathams, who are fab. My son saw them at Glastonbury last year, which I was very jealous of, and they were playing in London actually last week before, but it was the same night as the Aesthetic Medicine Live Awards, so there was no way of combining the two. Another band I absolutely love. They're sort of alternative indie rock, which sounds terribly kind of right on. They're called Juno Dream, and I caught them in Shoreditch a few weeks back, and that was absolutely amazing. I think they're going to be huge. Love their stuff, and that's sort of different because I love, you know, the fact that Spotify will feed you new stuff. Otherwise, you know, you get very set in your own patterns of playlists, don't you? So yeah, new music always keeps me interested.
Oh, absolutely. I know exactly what you mean. I've got very young kids, and they've introduced me to all sorts of stuff that I would never have listened to.
But
So
like what?
it's good to keep up with the latest stuff,
Yeah.
isn't it?
What are they making you listen to?
Okay, so they recently made me listen to Pink and Years, and these are
Yeah.
stuff I never would have listened to them, and now they're
Okay.
actually grown on me, and I can, you know, I quite like them.
Okay. You haven't got any Swifties in there?
Not yet, no, but I'm sure that'll
Well,
come.
my eldest is a massive Swiftie, and she's got tickets for one of the London shows, I think, or maybe it's out of town. Anyway, excitement is building.
I can imagine.
So
So this is the famous Eras tour.
yes, it is. Yes, it is. And a friend of mine caught it in Sweden. I mean, he's my age rather than her age. But one day I'm going to get the two of them together for an in-depth talk, and I'm gonna walk around the park with them. But I'll be 2 steps ahead so I can hear what they're saying, but I won't have to join in because they will be able to talk detail and minutiae. You know, and I love hearing it, but I can't join in.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to keep up either. I know what you mean. And do you like to read? I'm guessing you do as a journalist. And if so, is there anything that you particularly like?
Oddly enough, you know, I spend so much time reading stuff and papers and magazines and things. I do like reading, but I don't make time for reading books very much. I do better on audiobooks. So theoretically, I love reading, but I know the number of books I've read this year is kind of, you know, fingers of one hand or fewer. But what have I read? What have I read that was interesting? Fascinating a Japanese novel called Butter, which somebody had recommended to me. And what I'm really enjoying at the moment is I love the Harry Hula detective series, Yo Nesbo's ones, but there's only about, I think it's 13 of them, and I know I'm about up to about the 11th or 12th, so I have to ration myself on those, otherwise they'll all be gone. And I am at the moment crashing through Donna Tartt, I can't think what it's called. Goodness, what is this one called? The first one she wrote back in '92, which I remember reading that next summer and absolutely loving. Going back to it, I can remember the outline of what happened, but none of the details. So it is fantastic, and it's like having a completely new experience with it. And her language and the detail she puts into the story, it's just totally compelling. So yeah, that's what I'm reading at the moment.
What genre is that? I've heard the name Donna Tartt. I think I've seen it, but
it's a novel. It's about a group of 4 students at uni in America in a small college. They're all studying ancient Greeks, and they're a very small, packed group. And it's set in the 90s, so a lot of it could be very timeless, and they all try to work themselves up into an old sort of like Dionysian frenzy, like, you know, would have been the ancient Greek followers of the god Dionysus might have done many centuries back. And everything that follows after that, but which sounds a bit weird. So it's just a novel, but it's brilliant.
Okay, I'll have to check that one out. I mean, I know Yo Nesbo, and that's an excellent one, but I'll have to check that one out as well.
Yeah, yeah. Except the Harry Hula ones, they were fine at first, but they've got, over the years, as the series went on, they've got more and more gruesome. And
yeah,
if you're reading it, you can kind of go la 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 and skip down the page, you know, with your eye. But if you are, if you've got it on audio, and there's these dreadful scenes of, I don't know, torture and mayhem, whatever, unfolding, can't go. It's hard to know how far forward to fast forward it. because I'm very squeamish. So
Yeah, they can be a bit over the top, some of these books. Yeah,
yes, yes,
I've definitely
okay,
noticed that. Um,
yeah.
okay, and so can you tell me about the younger Alice? What did Alice want to do when she grew up?
Oh, not very much. I think I'm sure I wanted to be a vet when I was, because I loved animals, it's a sort of soppy 10-year-old, but then began to realize what it would involve. And like I say, I'm squeamish. So, and medicine was obviously not going to be my main calling. So that went out the window.
Okay, no, I think you've definitely dodged a bullet there. So my sister-in-law was interested in becoming a vet as well, and she loves horses. And then she
Yeah.
realised what a vet actually does for most of their job.
Oh, yeah.
And
But my parents have a small holding in North Gloucestershire, and they have just a few sheep because they're getting on a bit now. Some local dogs got in among them, savaged the sheep. This was back in February. It was just too awful. We spent the whole afternoon, me and the neighbours, because my parents aren't that mobile, able to help, sort of dragging the sheep out of all the bushes they'd rushed themselves into, and the vet and her assistant, who were fabulous and strong and compassionate, and came around and spent the whole afternoon sorting through them and putting down all the ones who were too badly wounded to whatever. It was just the most awful thing. Yeah, so no, I'm not at all sure I could do that.
yeah, no, it's not my thing either. So then, how did you get into journalism?
Because by a very, very luckily, when I was at uni, I thought I wanted to go into advertising because that was a really cool thing to do. It seemed in the mid 80s, if you didn't have the sort of financial brains to head for the city. But going to all the interviews for that really put me off it. So I was then a bit stuck without a job to go to. But the summer, my second summer at university, I applied to lots of magazines for, I suppose, what would now be called an intern thing. And I'd had a 2-week placement at Vogue, which was amazing, completely baffling. I hadn't got a clue what was going on, but it was very exciting. And they dropped me a line just before my exams saying, "Are you still free? If so, do come and see us." Very casual. Uh, and so I did. I went to see them and they said, "Oh, do come and see us in September." And I worked there on a kind of week by week basis, making coffee and doing photocopying and all the time-honoured things. This was for the wonderful Miss Beatrix Miller, or Miss Miller as she was known, who had been editing there for 22 years or something. This is 1985. And she gave me a job, proper job, as in rather than a "oh yes, do come back on Monday" kind of thing. Just she left and Anna Winter arrived. So, I was very lucky because when Anna came, almost everybody was fired, but I was too junior to be noticed, and I was just put in a sort of side department and kept my job and moved from there onto the Telegraph with the people in the department I'd been put into about year or two later, and love it as a career. My parents, like you said, are writers. My father being a journalist, but everybody else seems to be into sort of writing books and stuff. They all laughed and said, "Oh well, you'll have a lot of fun and it's better than working, but you'll never make a fortune." So I sort of think, fine, okay. So it was more by accident than design, but yeah, I've enjoyed it.
And what was it like? Did you actually work with Anna Winter, or were you just so?
Only in that I was in the features department when she arrived, and it was very different from Miss Miller's day, because everybody would sit there kind of ignoring the phones. So as a junior there, I learned to only answer the phone at the desk I was sitting at, otherwise it might be seen as interference. And if Anna was sitting in her office down the end of the department and heard phones ringing unanswered, she would come stomping out on her very high heels and shouting, "Answer the phones!" Okay, so it was a change scene. But I didn't work with her. No, I was in the copy department, which is where you check all the words, check all the spellings, put the commas in the right place, make up the headlines, and that was sort of not her area of interest. She was much more into the fashion, obviously, and the creative side of it all. So no, I didn't have much interaction with her.
And then when you went to the Telegraph, were you
Yeah.
focused on beauty and skincare and so on the Telegraph?
No, I wrote about shopping. I wrote about anything, trends, wrote about pubs on the waterfront. I ran the shopping pages in the magazine for about 4 years, which was a lot of fun because I was all of 23 when I went there. So everybody there was on the magazines, on the Telegraph magazine, was kind of under 27 because the editor was very young as well. So it was an absolute hoot. And then I moved on to the Sunday Telegraph and the Daily, and I wrote about lifestyle and sport and or the exercise side of stuff. And then I lost my job there when I was on maternity leave many years later. And then it was only after that, when I was freelance, that I started writing about beauty and stuff. That wasn't until the very late 90s.
So it was when you became a freelancer, you realised that was your niche, or had you?
No, I then went to work for the Evening Standard and wrote on features and wrote about whatever. So I wrote tech stuff and I wrote more health. I wrote about cars, anything. But the features editor there, because then there was no beauty coverage in the papers back in those days. Beauty was only for the magazines. But the features editor sort of said, look, there are all these doctors out there who are doing stuff to people's faces. And I said, okay. And she said, do you know about this? And I said, no. She said, well, get out there and find out. And it was hospital dermatologists with lasers. It was the people who were doing the early sort of collagen injections in the face. People were using toxin. But yeah, sure, there they were. So I started stumbling about in that whole area. And I'm hugely grateful to all the people who patiently would explain to me what they did, how it worked, and who was interested in this and where it was going on. A lot of whom are still going strong today. And gradually, I started to learn about that the whole area of aesthetics. And yeah, a colleague of mine on the Standard was writing about beauty. Either the PRs wanted to send things to somebody, she got the stuff. If she ever got something into the paper, they would send her flowers. It all looked like really nice. Whereas, a lot of the health stuff I was writing is all kind of, bad backs and ingrown toenails. It's a bit of a heart sink. So anyway, when my colleague left in the post room said, who are we going to give all this stuff to? I said, oh, it's all right. I'll look after that. And began to realise what an extraordinary field beauty was, because this would have been early 2000s, and all the kind of anti-aging ingredients, I don't like that phrase, but for want of a better term, were starting to come through in skincare. There were products that had clinical proof that they did what they said, so it wasn't just hope in a jar anymore. And I thought, this is completely fascinating. And also the beauty industry, when I started to get closer to that, you realise there are all these extraordinary brands out there. They're very keen to tell you about what they're doing, which is nice, because often as a journalist, journalists are generally not very much loved as a breed. So you get used to having a lot of doors shut in your faces or phones put down. But the beauty lot, well, come on in, here we are, meet the key people, and here, wow. This is amazing, and a lot of very interesting, very savvy women who would be running these new brands and studios and whatever. So yeah, so since then, that I thought, absolutely, this is where I want to be. So for the past 25 years, that's sort of what I've been focusing on. Latterly, like I said, aesthetics, because that is I just find it so compelling, and also, of course, I'm vain and I'm getting older, and so you think, because at first, all my lovely young colleagues, they'd sit around saying, I can't understand why anybody would want to put poison in their face. I mean, imagine. And I'd sit there thinking, you wait till you're looking down the barrel of 40 and you've got all these wrinkles and the lines under your eyes seem to be multiplying every day, and then you will start to think, would it be so bad? Would it be so bad just to try? And now, of course, a lot of them have been emailing me saying, oh, I've always been very anti it, but now where do I start? So, it's a difficult area, because this is absolutely not for everybody, all these cosmetic procedures and intervention. And I'm so glad to see that there's such a strong kind of positive aging movement as well, to looking in the other direction, just to say, look, you don't need to be hung up on these old stereotypes of wanting to look younger and whatever. But I choose the route of intervention because that's what that's what suits me.
No, absolutely. So, what would you say to your younger self if you could go back in time?
I would say just ease up a bit; it'll all be fine. Which, of course, I wouldn't have listened to, and to have and to have a bit more confidence. I'm not a very confident person, and found it very much easier to sit behind a keyboard or sit on the edge of things and observe rather than get out there. I mean, I'd make a rubbish interviewer. Luckily, as in my journalism, I've never been an interviewer because I always think, oh, I couldn't ask them a question like that. That's far too intrusive, which which is no good if you are trying to find out about people and what motivates them and all the rest of it.
Well, no, I really appreciate you coming on and speaking to me, and you come across so well. You come across so confidently. I would never would have known.
Thank you.
I never would have known. So the secret's out now.
Sorry, say again.
I said your secret's out now.
Yeah. Actually, my secret is that I'm really bad at recognizing people, and that's what I've got to go on Instagram and say one day. So if I see you at an aesthetic conference in a couple of weeks and you smile at me and I look completely blank, you just walk up and say, it's a bit of the brain called the fusiform gyrus, which I know from the novels of Harry Hula, Mr. Nesbo, rather. And some people have a really good one, so they can see a grainy CCTV image of a burglary, and they'll say, that's the guy that escaped from that other country and made a breakout from, and they'll be right. But I think if some people can have a really good one, it stands to reason that some people can have a really bad one. So that's my excuse. But it's embarrassing. It's particularly embarrassing in industry situations when there are people, or I'll say, oh, nice to meet you, and they'll say, we've met before. In fact, we met several times. And, I genuinely, if they say their name, I will know who they are, where they work, where they fit in, where they've last emailed.
What would you like to take with you when I maroon you on Shetland?
On Shetland? God, will I? How big a kit bag can I have?
As big as you can carry.
Okay. Because normally a desert island staple is sunscreen, obviously, but I'll only need it for the kind of the windburn. I'm going to need a big pop-up water tent. I'm going to need some nice padded clothing. I'm going to need all the boring essentials. I'm essentially very practical. I grew up in the countryside. I can skin a rabbit if I absolutely had to. I want a nice, maybe one of those Leatherman tools, a sharp knife, something to make a fire with. This isn't very amusing, is it? You want something funny? I'd want.
No, this is great, Alice. Just imagine you skinning a rabbit.
Give me a Wi-Fi signal, so a Wi-Fi signal on iPhone. I'll be an electricity supply, and I'll be all set.
Okay. Well, just while you're skinning your rabbit, you can listen to Spotify.
Hang on, there's somebody in the office saying what?
Selfie stick.
And a selfie stick.
So you can hold up the rabbit as well. Alice, well, it's been a great pleasure. Thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast.
Not at all. Thank you very much for inviting me. Absolute pleasure talking with you.
Thanks, Alice.
Okay. Bye now.
Bye.
See you.